right, good morning 10th grade. Hope you guys are doing well. This is going to be the last chapter of notes that we take for the school year in biology class. I'm just going to kind of chop out some of the sections. We're going to finish off with invertebrates, wrap that up, and then your final exam will just be over what we've learned this semester. You don't have to worry about what we learned last semester. I'm not going to test you over all that. I'm just going to focus on this semester for you guys. So just so you guys kind of have a idea of where I'm going with biology for the next 3 weeks, because we only have 3 weeks left. You can endure to the end. You got this. You're going to get 2 videos this week and 2 videos next week to wrap up this chapter. And then you will get your study sheets for the final exam. You'll get those in your work folders next week, and you will need to fill those out, because when you come back that Monday, I'm going to check them to make sure you guys have all the right information, make sure you're not studying the wrong thing, memorizing the wrong facts for the final exam. So just keep that in mind. That will be coming your way. So if you haven't been taking notes, it's probably not the best course of action for you. You might want to go back and watch those videos so you can pick up the terms that you're going to need for the final exam. So anyway, here we go. Chapter 19, Variety in the World of Invertebrates. We're going to look at mollusks today, all right? And this video is just going to cover the first section of notes, all right? So mollusks are the largest group of water animals. These include clams, oysters, slugs, snails, squids, and octopuses. We are going to look at each one of these. Some distinguishing characteristics of a mollusk. They have a muscular foot for locomotion, and this muscular foot is in a different location on each type of mollusk, which we're going to talk about types of mollusks on the next slide. They also have a visceral hump that houses their internal organs. This is kind of like the protective, almost like a separate protective body for the inside of the mollusk. And then they also have a mantle, which is a skin-like organ that covers the visceral hump and produces a shell in most species. So the shell of a lot of mollusks is actually that mantle. All right, classes of mollusks, and this is how we're going to break the rest of the notes down, is between these classes. Well, the rest of the notes for this video anyway. All right, so you have gastropods, bivalves, and cephalopods. Gastropods, these are also known as univalves because they only have one excurrent pore, which we'll talk about excurrent pores later on. But these include snails, slugs, and whelks. You have bivalves, which include your clams, your mussels, your oysters, and your scallops. And you have cephalopods, which include squids, octopuses, cuttlefish, and the chambered nautilus. The chambered nautilus is pretty cool. We'll look at him as I fall off my stool on the video, because that would be fantastic. We'll look at him later on. Bivalves, that's what we're going to talk about first. Now this is the group of mollusks that includes clams, scallops, oysters, and mussels. Now bivalves are 2-shelled mollusks, okay? If you know anything about if you remember back to 9th grade, okay, when we talked about prefixes, in science, bi or di means 2. So bivalves you're dealing with 2-shelled mollusks. Okay. So their shells have 3 layers. Letter A, we're going to look at these 3 layers. They have a horn-like outer layer, a crystalline middle layer, and a pearly inner layer. All right. And the shell, which really is a part of the mantle. Okay. So it's layered on top of the mantle, okay? And it starts with the pearly inner layer, which is kind of like a protective, a harder protective layer for that mantle. Then you have the crystalline middle layer, which is kind of a buffer between the outer shell and the inner shell. And then the horn-like outer layer, this is what we think of when we think of shells, okay, is this horn-like outer layer. Pearls. Pearls are formed by bivalves, okay? But it's formed when a foreign substance gets lodged in the mantle. The mollusk secretes a nacre. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I never say it right the same way twice. So you guys know that. Which forms the pearly layer around the foreign object. These layers build until a pearl is formed. They also have adductor muscles, which hold the hinges of the two shells together. Okay, it's why when they open the top shell from the bottom shell, the top shell doesn't pop off and float away into the ocean. It's because these muscles are holding it in place. Locomotion, how do they get around? They have a foot for burrowing into the sand and to move across the sea floor. They will actually push this foot out of their shell. Okay, it's not on the bottom of their shell like you would think feet would be for another animal. Okay, it's actually inside of them, and they push it out of their shell, and they use it either to dig into the sand, so when it's high tide they don't get swept away, or they use it to move around the bottom of the ocean floor. The mantle cavity, this is the chamber that holds the gills. Okay, so they don't have lungs, they have gills, and they are located in this mantle chamber. They have an in-current siphon and an ex-current siphon. The in-current siphon takes water into the cavity, and the ex-current siphon lets water out of this mantle cavity. All right, and if you remember how gills work from when we talked about fish, remember the gills extract that oxygen from the water. So this in-current and ex-current siphon are very important for a mollusk or for a bivalve anyway, because if they don't have them, then no water is getting into the mantle cavity, and they're not being able to breathe, and thus they will die. All right. The circulatory system is open and the blood is blue or colorless. So we've talked about open circulatory systems. There's no vessels to restrict that blood flow. So it flows freely throughout the organs, excuse me. And then edible bivalves can be dangerous to eat because they feed on dead organic matter, which may be contaminated, which is why some people get sick after they eat shellfish. Okay. Gastropods. These are stomach-footed mollusks. Okay. If you know what the term gastro stands for, it stands for stomach or internal workings, and then pod refers to foot, so gastropod, stomach-footed mollusks. This group includes snails, slugs, whelks, abalones, conchs, dowries, and murexes. We're not going to look at all of them. We're going to mainly talk about what we would be most familiar with, which would be snails and slugs. People from the Bahamian Islands, they are very familiar with conch. I actually got to eat conch one time because I went to college with a guy from the Bahamas, and when he came back from spring break, he brought back some fried conch, and he let me have it. And it was interesting. It was different. I don't know that I would eat it all the time, but if I was there on vacation, I'd probably eat it. Anyway, shells, they have one shell. Okay, so these are not two-shelled organisms, they are single-shelled organisms. And they are known as univalves, okay? Una stands for one. The shell is usually coiled with a unique design that are used for identification. The swirls of the shells, or the coils of the shells, typically tell us what type of univalve we are dealing with. Ones without shells. Now, not all of them do have shells. There are some without shells. The ones that you would be most familiar with would be the slug. Okay, you can probably go outside and see a slug at some point in time. But they lack a shell. They look like snails, but they lack that shell. And then you have nudibranches. Nudibranches are so pretty. Look up a picture of them. They are beautiful. Okay, but they are marine slugs. They have a plume-like gill that extends from their sides and their backs, and they're all different kinds of colors. They're really pretty. I encourage you to look a picture of one up so you can be familiar with it. Basic body structure here. They have a foot, a visceral hump, and a mantle, just like bivalves do. Okay, But instead of their foot being inside their shell, their foot is actually located on the bottom of their body along their stomach region. Okay, they have a head that protrudes from the shell. Okay, and they produce a ribbon of slime from their foot, which is located along their stomach, which allows them to move. If they don't secrete this slime, they're not going anywhere. This slime, basically what it does is it reduces the friction between them and the ground, and it allows them to move easily over the ground without getting caught on any bumps or rocks or nicks that would stop them originally from moving. Land-dwelling gastropods have lungs instead of gills. Okay, that just makes sense. If there's no water, the gills wouldn't work, so why would they have gills? All right, they have lungs instead. Head structure. They have two pairs of tentacles, one for feeling and one that contains the eyes. If you ever look at a snail, you will notice this. And then they also have the radula, which is a rough file-like organ that scrapes food and carries it into the digestive tract. Maybe when you guys come back, we might get to dissect one of these together, and you would actually get to see the radula and what it looks like and feels like. It has a very interesting texture to it. Cephalopods. These are head-footed mollusks. This group includes octopuses, squid, cuttlefish, and chambered nautilus. You say, hang on, Ms. Maxwell. Octopuses have tentacles, and those are feet, aren't they? Not exactly. All right. So they are considered mollusks because they have a mantle, a visceral hump, and a foot. Squids. Squids are known for being able to quickly force water out of their siphon and jet away. This siphon on most squids is located at the top of their head. It looks almost like a little, looks like a little hole that allows you to just, if you were to squeeze the squid, it would go shoot and shoot away, shoot water out and shoot away. They have 10 tentacles with suction cups that allow them to catch and hold prey, and that is the main function of tentacles. Okay, the main function of tentacles are to capture and hold prey to allow them to force it into their mouth. So tentacles are really more like arms or hands. They're not really feet. They don't really technically behave like feet for the cephalopod. They have these undulating fins at the sides of their head that allow them to swim steadily. The fins located on their head, as far as a squid goes, this would behave more like the feet of the squid. And they emit an inky fluid when threatened. You've probably seen pictures of that before. If we were going to dissect squids, you would get to actually take out the ink cartridge, and we would cut that open, and I'd let you guys see that. But I don't think we're going to get a chance to do squids, which is sad. The giant squid is the largest invertebrate. It weighs over a ton, and it measures up to 60 feet in length. Octopuses. Okay, and it is octopuses, it's not octopi. Okay, I've had people argue that with me. I've looked it up. It's octopuses. Check me out if you don't believe me. But it is octopuses if you're talking about them in the plural. Anyway, they have 8 tentacles with suction cups that behave like a squid's. So again, the main purpose of the tentacle for the octopus is to behave almost like arms, not really feet. The Pacific giant octopus is the largest one. It has an arm span of more than 20 feet, and it weighs over 150 pounds. And it is thought to be the most intelligent of all invertebrates. They believe that they have the greatest memory out of all invertebrates, and that they are the smartest when it comes to catching and releasing prey or avoiding predators. The Nautilus. This is the only cephalopod with an external shell. Okay, this is what sets it apart from every other cephalopod. But the shell is a mantle of chambers arranged in a spiral, and as it grows, new chambers are added. Now, with a lot of shelled organisms, as far as like, if you think of like hermit crabs, well, I won't say with a lot of shelled organisms, how do I want to say this? With some shelled organisms, okay, they have to get a new shell every time they grow, okay? But with a nautilus, their shell grows with them. So The chambers can be filled with water to make it sink in the water, or water can be pumped into it to make it float. So the chambers of their shell really is like a flotation device for them. They can, or like an airbag system. It allows them to, if they want to float, the chambers are able to be filled with water, and allows them to stay buoyant. If they want to sink in the water column, then they let water out of those chambers and they seal them off so they can sink. And that's where we're going to stop for today with this video. That is all about mollusks. On Wednesday, hopefully, we'll see. Depends on how the internet behaves for me. You guys know my struggles there. But anyway, hopefully we will do sections 2 and 3 notes on Wednesday of this week. Sorry. And if time permits, you will be getting a grasshopper dissection video as well. If I can get some teachers to help me out with that. If not, you'll just get me cutting open the grasshopper and talking about it for you. All right. I hope you guys have a good day. I miss you and I'm praying for you.